Hello and welcome to another Pye and Smith production. It is New Year's Eve. We've got a blank day of darting action. We're giving the best darts players in the world a bit of a rest before the return on New Year's Day. There's only 8 players left and we're going to have a quick run through the chances and the story so far for each of the 8 players. There's 4 quarterfinals to take place on New Year's Day. Pye Man has been burrowing away in his office with his dartboard behind him, getting some stats together, which he's going to run you through. I'm going to run you through a bit of the prices and the betting history. So, starting with quarterfinal number 1, from quarter 1, is obviously the number 1 seed, Michael van Gerwen. He takes on Dave Chisnall. Pre-tournament, Van Gerwen was 5-2. Just as a side note there as well, before the Grand Slam, Van Gerwen was 4-1, believe it or not. I still have to repeat that because it seems too good to be true. He's now a best price 4-5, so he's odds on to win this tournament. And Dave Chisnall takes him on. He was 50-1 before a dart was thrown at Ali Pali, and he's now 16-1. Pye Man's just going to run you through some stats. We've got the number 1 seed taking on the number 8 seed from quarter 1.
Yeah, cheers, Adam. So obviously these are the 2 top seeds from this quarter, and the 2 that, if you were going purely on ranking and stuff, the 2 you would have expected to emerge. But to be honest, not all the markets saw it. Dave Chisnall springing somewhat of a surprise in beating Dimitri van den Berg in terms of quality. What was an absolutely sensational game, although the averages maybe won't do it quite enough justice, given it dropped off a little bit in the last 2 sets. But really, for the first 5 or 6 sets, one of the best games you'll see. So let's just take a closer look at these 2 players. Van Gerwen, as you say, 4-5 favourite to go on and win this tournament now, and a worthy favourite at that, I think. His path to this stage, he beat Ryan Murray in round 2, 3-1, beat Ricky Evans 4-0 in a cracker, and then possibly the game of the tournament, held off Joe Cullen coming back from 3-1 down to win that 4-3. So on his way to the final, MVG dropping 4 sets, probably more than some people would have anticipated, but there we are. I mean, he's still here, he's still fighting. His lowest average of the tournament, this is where he gets really impressive for Van Gerwen. Lowest average was 100.43 and his highest average 108.98. So he really is in a different stratosphere to the rest of the field in that particular field. His doubling has been the key to that. 41 from 81 attempts across his 3 games. Over 50% on the doubles, which is frankly sensational over a 3-game period to be over 50% on the doubles. And that is ultimately what has got Van Gerwen this far, because he has been outscored by Cullen, and Ricky Evans certainly managed to match him in the scoring stakes, but the doubling is too good from Van Gerwen, to be honest. He doesn't give his opponents many chances. Not only do you have to have the game of your life, you have to take the few chances that happens to generate for you. So, you know, that's where Van Gerwen's at. Now, we expected him to be facing Dimitri van den Berg in a quarterfinal, but instead he's going to be facing Dimitri's conqueror, Dave Chisnall. Credit to Chizzy. Didn't want to discount him too lightly, but on the bare form of recent weeks, it was probably easier to go with Dimitri, who was obviously a little bit more proven as a world match play champion. Looked in really fine form in the Grand Slam, and I don't think Dimitri van den Berg let anybody down with his performance. He was just blown away by a possible career best opening 3 sets from Dave Chisnall, to be honest. But there we are. Dave Chisnall's path to this stage. Well, he got past Keegan Brown 3-1 in the first round. Wasn't an entirely convincing performance. And then 4-2 against Danny Noppert. He actually lost the first 6 legs straight of that game and looked to be in danger of going out to someone who was hugely unfancied in that game, to be honest. So nothing too eye-catching from Chizzy in the run-up to that Van den Berg game. But wow, in the 3 sets of the Van den Berg game, first 3 sets, he was just absolutely flawless. We're talking 110-plus averages for 3 sets here. Basically, if Dimitri van den Berg didn't go out in 12 darts or less, he didn't win a leg for that period of the game. So this was really, it was verging on ludicrous, to be honest, world record kind of standards. But there we are. Dimitri did launch a bit of a fight back, but Chizzy got the job done 4-2 in the end. He's dropped 5 sets, obviously, on the way to getting here. So he hasn't brushed anybody to get to this stage. So it's normally hard work for Chizzy. His current odds are around the 16-1 mark. Now, you might think that's harsh for somebody that's done what he has done in the previous round, but it's based on a number of factors. largely the fact that he'll have to beat Michael van Gerwen and 2 others. That is definitely factored into his price. And I think you've also got to consider the fact that Chizzy, he's done this before. He's produced huge performances in last 16's quarterfinals. He's got everybody on the Chisnall train thinking that he's about to crack it, and then, going on and replicating those kind of performances, so difficult. So I think we have to be realistic here and say that that is probably the right price for Chizzy. If he was to beat Van Gerwen, expect those odds to absolutely tumble. If you fancy Chizzy to go all the way, get on him now rather than after he beats MVG, because that will be the one that changes the price significantly. Lowest average of 97.35 for Chizzy, highest of 101. So that average that he produced against Dimitri van den Berg is only a point higher than MVG's lowest average to date in the tournament. So need another career best from Chizzy. 45% on the doubles though, 36 out of 80. He's only second to MVG in that department alongside Gerwyn Price. So that game is going to be won and lost on Chisnall's scoring and doubling. Can he maintain the standards he set?
Well, we've seen Chisnall produce some sensational performances in terms of scoring over the years, sporadically, it should be said. But last night, the doubling was the best I've seen from Chisnall. I know some people like yourself, Pieman, have said it's possibly the best they've ever seen Chisnall overall. But just taking Chisnall's doubling, which is normally his weakness, if there is to pick a weakness of a world-class player, and he was brilliant last night. And I know a lot of the Sky commentators go on about timing, and he had the timing with it as well in terms of in the pivotal moments in sets that saw van den Berg averaging 107 and being 3-0 down in sets. It was quite incredible, really. Brilliant, absolutely superb performance from Chisnall, a deserved win. And I mean, it sounds ridiculous, but Dimitri van den Berg could, for the second time in a month, in 2 different tournaments, be the best player in the tournament and not even make the final. Maybe that's a bit far-fetched in this one, given we've got Van Gerwen on top form. But in the Grand Slam, there's an argument that could be made that was the case, and he's played with massive credit again here. And the only thing I would say about Chisnall, I just hope that he can replicate, if you like, or get somewhere near to that form. I think the one-day break today on New Year's Eve will help him. I just want him to produce somewhere near that level, or if not better. And we could have a stonking game against Van Gerwen, but there's a part of me that just thinks that it might, that might have been his cup final against Van den Berg, and he might roll over. I very much hope that I'm wrong. Go on, Pamela.
Sorry, I just wanted to say that, for me, I was delighted for Dave Chisnall because he's such a likeable fella. He's been around such a long time, and no one would begrudge him success. But like you, I was just left with this slightly disappointed feeling, because I feel like what Dimitri van den Berg did last night, that's become his normal. Whereas what Dave Chisnall did was out of the ordinary, to be honest. And if you're looking at a player to replicate that performance, I think Dimitri was far likely to go on and do that again against MVG. Whereas Dave, I'm not sure, but I really hope he does. I'll be fully behind him. But I agree with you.
Yeah, on to the second quarter final, and the winner will play either Van Gerwen or Chisnall. It's Gary Anderson, the 2-time world champ himself, against Dirk van Duijvenbode. I think Dirk's been at the Worlds before, but has certainly not been this far. Anderson pre-tournament with his injury problems that have not shown at all at this tournament, to be fair. He was 33-1. I remember we talked on Christmas Eve when we was doing the story so far. Out of quarter 2, where Michael Smith had already departed, Gary Anderson was the shortest price out of quarter 2 at around 30 on Betfair, which is staggering, really, given that Michael Smith had already gone. Anderson had won a couple of games. But anyway, he's 12-1 now, Anderson. He plays Dirk van Duijvenbode. Dirk was 100-1 before a dart was thrown, and he's now about 14-1. So 12 and 14-1, they're similar prices, respectively. Like I say, the winner will have to take on Van Gerwen or possibly Chisnall. So, yeah, Anderson has provided us with plenty of entertainment on and off the hockey, really. He's been in decent form on the stage, although his highest average is only 96.8, as Pieman will come on to. So he's not really reached the heights of some others. But Dirk has been a bit of a surprise package, really. I was really impressed with Dirk last night. I remember I texted you after Glenn Durant had won the first set against Dirk. I think it was with throw, so there was nothing surprising there. But I just said I'd be impressed with Dirk if he beats Glenn Durant, because Glenn's got that different pace. He's got the more experience. He knows every trick in the book. He's got the clutch finishing at pivotal moments. And Dirk overcame that in a last leg decider as well, to be fair. So I thought that was a really big win. Probably one of the most important wins of his career so far, to be fair to him. And like I say, he goes in with Gary Anderson. And I don't think that there's not much to split them in the markets. It's pretty much 10-11 each of two in that game. And what did you think of that one, Primer?
Well, I mean, I'm not surprised that the markets have got that sort of tight because it's a very difficult match to weigh up. Normally, you have players with kind of similar career paths at this stage, and one has maybe achieved more than the other, one performing better than the other, and you can kind of make a clear assumption of who should win. It doesn't always go that way, but this game is just so difficult because you've got. If you take, for example, some of the different routes that you could look at, if you're looking at prestige and stature of player, Gary Anderson is way above Dirk van Duijvenbode. But if you're looking at bare form and recent form, Dirk is playing considerably better than Gary. But then you've got to factor in the likes of Ali Pali experience as well, which, Gary has been to many, many quarterfinals. This is Dirk's first, obviously. But then, just like little things Gary says about being focused on next year and not really caring about this tournament and stuff like that. It's just such a hard one to weigh up. But looking a bit deeper at each player, first, Gary Anderson, his path to this stage has been, well, quite an interesting one, to be honest. He beat Madars Razma 3-1 in his second round game. Wouldn't say he was ever in danger, but it wasn't like a scintillating performance from Gary, really. He really turned it on in the fourth set from memory, but up until that, it was very nip and tuck. He then came in to play Mensur Suljovic, a game that has made all the headlines for the wrong reasons. Gary kind of taking liberties with the way that Mensur approached the game with his slow play and going to the wrong table, etc. Seemed to really rattle him up, but he managed to dig in and win that game 4-3. And then his last 16 game, brushing aside Devin Peterson 4-0, as we kind of predicted. The market was quite tight on that game, but Devin Peterson had kind of been quite lucky to get to that stage, to be honest, and he was found out by Anderson. His doubling wasn't up to scratch, and he finally had someone who was able to punish that. An interesting route to here for Gary, and as you say, not somebody that was getting mentioned much prior to the tournament because of his build-up, but once Michael Smith came out, suddenly people started looking at Gary Anderson and thinking, well, maybe he could, have a bit of a run here. And so it's proven. As you say, pre-tournament odds of 33 is now into 12s. And I think if Gary Anderson was in the Gary Anderson form of 2 or 3 years ago, he wouldn't be 12-1. He'd be about 4-1. So that's a marker of where he's at. As you say, the averages have not really been great. He's done what he's needed to do, but averaging between 92 and 96 throughout, he's going to have to lift that. And the doubling again, 37.5% on his doubles. It's not really enough. He was solid enough against Devin Peterson on his doubles, but again, that game against Mensur, they both missed a hatful of doubles, and Gary really needs to brush that up. Dirk, of course, playing an extra match than everyone else. He came in at round 1. And he had a scare there as well. He beat Bradley Brooks 3-2. He had to come from behind in that game. He had to come from behind against Rob Cross. Rob Cross was waiting on a match start. If he missed, he put in a really impressive performance against Adam Hunt when he beat him 4-0. Both players played well that day, but Dirk particularly so. And then, as you say, a completely different experience for him against Glenn Durrant, a game which he again found himself considerably behind in 3-1, had to launch a spectacular comeback to win 4-3. So he has dropped 7 sets on his way to this stage. But, I wouldn't read too much into that. He's played the extra game. Pre-tournament odds of 100-1. Wasn't without his supporters for that, memorable run that he's had very recently on TV. But he's still 14-1 chance. And I think that's about fair, to be honest. He will have a chance here of getting past Gary Anderson. But anything beyond that, he's going to have to lift his game to new levels again, I think. Lowest average in one of his games of 92.5. He just can't go back to those kind of levels. He'll be punished by anyone left in the tournament if he dips anywhere near there. He needs to get back up above the ton mark, really. 104 against Adam Hunt, so we know he's got it in the locker. His doubling's been good, Dirk. Obviously, he's got a bigger sample size than everyone else, and he's still over the 40% mark. So I've been impressed with Dirk, especially on his clutch doubling. When he's had a big moment in a match, he's generally stepped up and taken it. You think back to the 110 against Cross, couple of huge finishes in that Durant game last night that he managed to hold it together for. But conversely, his finishing early in that Glen Durant game really let him down, really went missing. And he can't do that against Gary Anderson. You don't want to give Gary Anderson a lead, as we've said in previous videos. He needs to get out in front and really hammer home his superior form, I think. So if this turns into a battle, I would be favouring Gary Anderson, to be honest. But if Dirk can just start well and get a lead, Gary's not in absolutely vintage form. It's a winnable game. I'm edging towards Anderson just on experience. And I think the fact that it's over 9 sets is also an advantage for Anderson.
Yeah, I would probably disagree and edge towards Dirk. Probably a little bit of pocket talk there as well. But yeah, I just think, Gary is a conundrum in himself. You don't know what mood he's going to be in. I mean, he's been in different kind of moods so far. I just think Dirk's a surprise package, and I've put a lot of emphasis on that performance against Glen to get past, when, like you say, 3-1 down, could have rolled over. Glen could have, ground it out. And Dirk came back and, like I say, deciding leg as well. Had show bottle, finishing, patience, consistency. So I thought that was a big test for him. So I'll be cheering Dirk on. Into the bottom half of the draw, the third quarter final, which will actually take place first on the Sky Sports screens about 12:15 on New Year's Day. So neither Krzysztof, Ratajski or Stephen Bunting will be wanting to go too hard tonight on New Year's Eve. Ratajski is 1-2 to win this match in itself. I think that's about right. To be honest, I think Stephen Bunting has rode his luck to get this far. Again, that is a bit of pocket talk. But he was 2-0 down to Ryan Searle in a deciding set and won 3-2. So fair play for him to showing that bottle. I thought his scoring, Bunting, against Searle was excellent. His 140s, his 180s at good moments, really, really good. His doubling's not the best, but his scoring really is there. So there will be a showdown of scoring because we know Ratajski's solid on the 140s, not so much the 180s, and Bunting can do the 140s and 180s. So fair play to him there. Bunting was definitely, without any doubt, the biggest prize of any remaining runner in the tournament before a dart was thrown. Bunting was available at 400 to 1. He's now the outsider of the 8 at 33 to 1. Ratajski was Ratajski was 50 to 1 before the tournament, and is now about 10 to 1. So they're assuming that Ratajski makes it through to the semi-final. I'd be with Ratajski, but Bunting's already cost me money once, and he is playing the best form we've seen him in a while. So good luck to him, to be fair.
Yeah, and not a game that anyone would have predicted. I'm happy to buy a pint when lockdown finishes. If anyone can show me evidence they predicted this quarterfinal, this was a quarter that had Peter Wright in it. It had Simon Whitlock in it, James Wade in it, and you could make a case for a few lively outsiders. Ratajski, one of them, but you wouldn't have been doing it with any conviction, to be honest. And Stephen Bunting, he's really come from the clouds, to be honest. He could have very easily gone in his first game where he was behind to Andy Bolton and not playing well at all. But anyway, just looking a little bit more of their paths, I'm not surprised Ratajski's been put in as a favourite. He was one of only 2 men to come through his first 2 games without dropping a set. Beat Ryan Joyce 3-0 and then Simon Whitlock 4-0 in a bizarre game, to be honest, where neither of them were really on form. But Ratajski held it together a lot better than Simon, surprisingly. Then an absolute classic last 16 game with Gabriel Clemens, which will be most remembered for both players missing 7 match darts in the final leg. Just a crazy game, which was high on quality up until that point. But this maybe just is an indication of how much Ratajski was feeling it alongside Clemens. And that's my one concern with Krzysztof Ratajski. We saw him basically fall apart in that last leg against Clemens. So he needs to put that behind him now. He, as you say, came in a 50 to 1 chance, so he wasn't entirely unfancied. A very solid player on the floor. He has been for a couple of years now. Won tournaments on the floor, but not really transferred it to the big stage yet. This has definitely been a career-defining moment for Krzysztof Ratajski. And if he can get through this, it'll be even more so. Lowest average of the tournament so far, 93.3, but highest average of a ton. He will need to go up another level if he has aspirations of, I would say, even reaching the final, to be honest. you're going to need ton plus averages from here, I think, if you're going to go to the final. Stephen Bunting, conversely, well, as I say, he was behind and in big trouble against Andy Bolton, which wasn't a surprise to many people in round 2, but he managed to sort of pull out the fire, get through that game 3-2. He then dumped out a really out of sorts James Wade 4-2, was 2-0 down in that match and managed to turn it round. But that was all about Wade, really. Wade didn't really turn up. Bunting was just kind of efficient in the way he did that. And then a real ding-dong with Ryan Searle, as we kind of anticipated. 2 players in one of the biggest games of their careers. And I thought, to be honest, Bunting, he deserved credit for the way he hung in this game because, yes, he was in charge for large parts of it, but Searle did take the lead in the last set. And it was kind of testament to how Stephen Bunting has reached this stage, really. He never gave up. He just got on with his work. And to be honest, the darts he threw in the last 3 legs were as good as anyone's thrown in the tournament. I thought he was really impressive. And that's what makes Stephen Bunting interesting in this quarterfinal for me. When the going got tough at the finish, he improved. When Ratajski got to the finish against Clemens, he kind of had a bit of a meltdown. And I think people are looking purely on the form this year and kind of presuming that the cream will rise with Ratajski. But I think there were signs the occasion got to him. And Stephen Bunting, former BDO champion, he's played many a big match. He's feeling really good about himself. I think Stephen Bunting can beat Ratajski here at a decent price. And I think it'll be an interesting game.
I think that's a fair point about Bunting toward, getting better and Ratajski getting worse as the game went on. Yeah, but I just think that, like you say, but he could have gone out to Bolton. He could have gone out to James Wade, who had an off day. Now, I know that I back Searle, and we've been Searle's biggest fans on Planet YouTube, but don't get me wrong. I thought Searle was lucky to make it to 3-3 and a deciding set. But when he did, obviously, I was cheering him on, and I was quite confident when he was 2-0 up. So massive credit to Bunting. I thought he should have probably polished that game off 4-1 or 4-2, Bunting, to be fair to you. But yeah, he showed real bottle in that final set. So yeah, fair play to Bunting. I think the run's got to come to an end, man, to be honest. I know Ratajski hasn't quite got the experience, but I think Ratajski can, you need to get 5 sets here. I think he can win this 5-3-ish. As long as it doesn't go to a deciding set like it did against Clemens or a deciding leg, as it were. I think that he can get over the line. It's just that with the pressure of it being such a sudden death leg, I think Ratajski can get through this. And this brings us on to the final quarterfinal from quarter 4. Obviously, the winner of this game will play Ratajski or Bunting. It's Gerwyn Price, my outright selection against Daryl Gurney. Daryl Gurney's been a bit of a surprise package, given that his form going into this, but it certainly wouldn't be a surprise for his overall career for him to have made a quarterfinal at the Worlds. That is for sure. Gerwyn Price at the outset of the tournament was about 11-2. That's the price I'm on at. He's currently 7-2. Having made it this far, I didn't think that he was impressive in his first 2 games. Deciding leg against Jamie Lewis, and then coming through there, and then but he did impress me yesterday with his win yesterday and against Mervyn King. I think he needed to. I think he needed the performance, and we got it yesterday. His scoring was marginally better, but his finishing was fantastic yesterday, Gerwyn Price. And although King was below par that we've seen recently from King, Price got the job done, and I was happy to see that. So yeah, he's into 7-2 now, still the second favourite. And Gurney started the tournament at 100-1, and he's 20-1. So one of the outsiders, but I tell you what, Gurney's going to be up for this, and if he can keep producing, he's had the averages have been there. Price is the favourite, as you would imagine. Gurney's available at 11-5, but I think there might be some juice in that Gurney price, to be honest. But I'm committed to the Gerwyn Price train, and he's my only real remaining hope. I've only got a £5 on Big Dirk. I've got a few quid more on Gerwyn Price, so fingers crossed for me.
Yeah, a very interesting duo in this bottom part of the draw. One that was very much fancied to get to this stage and has made hard work of it, and one that wasn't fancied at all and has made relatively light work of it. So yeah, different ways and means, but they're both here. Looking first at Gerwyn Price, as you said, Jamie Lewis 3-2. That went all the way. Went all the way again against Brendan Dolan 4-3, coming through another last leg decider. And then a really good performance to beat off a resurgent Mervyn King last night. I was so impressed with this Gerwyn Price performance. He just didn't give Mervyn King a sniff, really. His doubling was excellent on tops, especially at the start of the game. He built up an early lead just with ruthless finishing. And, Mervyn has shown over the last few months that if you get embroiled in a game with him, he's likely going to turn you over. But Price didn't let this get close, Even the set that Mervyn won was a break back against the dart, and he had to produce an outstanding leg just to get that break back. So Gerwyn was really impressive for me. He's doubling throughout the tournament, 40 out of 88. That's a 45.4% margin. When you consider the struggles he's had, to have that higher doubling start, second in the field, well, effectively joint second with Chisnall. But, when you consider the battles and the pressure situations he's been embroiled in, that's all the more impressive for me. And that is definitely the standout factor of his game, I think, is his tops hitting. He's just, if I had to put money on someone to hit something with one dart, it'd be Gerwyn Price with tops. No doubt about that. He's dropped 6 sets to get here, obviously. So he has been through a few battles and he's got the scars to show it. Averages will need to go up. The typical Price scoring hasn't quite been there. We haven't heard him roaring enough 180s as many would have anticipated. Highest average of 99. You feel like he's going to have to break that 3-figure barrier at some point if he's going to lift the title. He faces Daryl Gurney. Really interesting runner, Daryl Gurney. Ex-Premier League. Really, established player. Great career, but he's had some serious struggles. But I've been really impressed with him in this tournament, as I've said on a number of occasions. Beat Willie O'Connor 3-2 in the second round. Willie O'Connor played really well here, as anticipated. Going into the game, I thought O'Connor might turn Gurney over, but Gurney was excellent, averaging a ton. Could have easily boxed this off 3-0, so the scoreline probably doesn't do him much justice. And then he had a great battle with his good friend Krzysztof, where they both averaged around a ton. Gurney just taking big finishes at the right time again and making light work of his mate, who must have wondered how he lost that game 4-1. He seemed to be hitting consistent 140s and 180s, but was never really in the match. That is testament to how well Gurney's playing. And then Van der Voort, this was a bit more of a scrap, to be honest. Both players maybe feeling the pressure a little bit, but he got through it and he managed to box Vincent off before the need for a last set decider, which is better than we've seen a lot of players do. Just looking through these players, there's not many. Gurney may even be the only player who hasn't had the need for a last set decider yet, because just looking up my stats, I mean, Gerwyn Price obviously had a couple. Stephen Bunting's gone into a last set. Ratajski's gone into a last set. Dirk.
Yeah, you're right.
Yeah. So, I mean, that's testament to him that he's managed to sort of not let these games get out of control. I think the key to this game, as I say, is going to be Gerwyn Price. We've got to be honest. Yes, Daryl Gurney's got the quality to trouble him, but if Gerwyn Price can find his very best A game, he should beat Daryl Gurney. There's enough evidence to suggest that he won't find that A game, and this could become a battle. So, as you say, I could see interest in the 11-5 on Gurney. I kind of flagged him up for the quarter at 14-1 after his first round game. So, if you've on that price, you're effectively got 14-1 on him to beat Gerwyn Price, which I would say is a value bet. But, I don't want to stick my neck out and say he's going to beat Price, because I thought Price's performance against Merv King was really, really impressive for a number of reasons. But I think he can make a game of it. And if Gerwyn has an off day, I think Daryl will take advantage.
Yeah, absolutely. Gerwyn Price will have to be on his game. But I just think that, he needed that performance against King. We're down to the business end now, and he knows it, and he's confident, and he knows if he can win this tournament, he can go to number one and blah, 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 and he's not won the world title before. He fell short of the semi-final last year, and in a game that he thought he should have won, and that still haunts him, I believe. He still talks about it quite regularly. So he's had to put something right. He's got a point to prove, Price, and like I say, he needed that King performance. He's really settled into the tournament now, I think, and belatedly, but it's obviously come at the right time with the quarterfinals. So yeah, I'll be cheering Price, but I am worried about Gurney, and I'm not dismissing him. So that wraps up our run through the final 8, as it were. We're down to just 8 players. There's only 3 days of action left. We'll of course be back with a bit more in-depth look at each individual game that take place on New Year's Day, with a bit of a betting angle as well. So plenty more content to come, and thanks for tuning in.
Cheers, guys.
Cheers.